Welcome. My name is Joanne Butcher. I am a business coach for filmmakers, and I help filmmakers raise money and get their films produced and distributed globally. And every other week, I interview a filmmaker who is rocking it in the film business. And I do these interviews because I feel that filmmakers are really desperate. They really want to have a career in filmmaking. They really want to work full-time as filmmakers. They really want to move forward with their filmmaking. And so I like to have these interviews so that we can meet people who are already doing it, who are already on the path, and who can lead the way. And so that's what the filmmaker's life is really about. So today I am very, very excited to introduce to you Derrick Mullen. And Derrick and I have met very recently on Clubhouse. And so I do a weekly room on Clubhouse called Making Movies, Making Money. And Derrick has been joining in and been very generous with his information. So it's great to see you actually in real, although it's not in real life, is it? It's actually
but it's real time, face to face in this virtual world that's been created since the pandemic, really. So and that's a good thing. I mean, even with Clubhouse, that's a good thing.
Yes.
So I appreciate the opportunity and to be here in this space with you today and to share whatever I can with other independent filmmakers, out there. So
wonderful. Well, welcome all the way from Atlanta. And for my clients and my regulars who come, I am here in Trinidad and Tobago and hanging out with my dad, who is off at the office today. He went into town to the office. He's 88 and hey.
88 and went to the office.
And he's gone to the office.
That sounds like somebody who's doing what he loves to do.
That's right. He's off at the office. So anyway, my first question that I always ask Derrick is, when did you first know that you were a filmmaker?
Well, man, well, here's the thing. You're right. I didn't know that I was a filmmaker, but I love films, right? Just to kind of give you a little background, for me, I wanted to be an actor. So let's start there. I wanted to be an actor.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I wanted to be an actor. I was living in Fort Lauderdale at the time. I just recently graduated high school, of course, was going to college. And I wanted to work somewhere that gave me flexibility, but also where I can also enjoy, I guess, movies. And at the time, that was this company that was like the biggest company ever at the time in the film industry by the name of Blockbuster.
Oh.
We now know we have in this generation is Netflix, but Blockbuster was and I'm definitely dating myself when I talk about Blockbuster, but Blockbuster is where I kind of first started as far as just getting familiar, really loving and watching movies. And when I worked there, I used to watch movies all the time. We was able to get like 5 free movies per week. And I took advantage of looking at all the movies I could. And at the time, I really didn't know. I will say that even when I was in high school, I took a film class. So I think there was an interest there.
Oh, wow.
But again, it was just something I was doing. I'm an artist. I'm an artist. I mean, I'm very creative. Today's where we call
cool school.
What's that?
You went to a cool school because at my high school, they didn't have film. Talk about dating myself. At my high school, I did Latin and Greek. So,
Yeah. So it was interesting. I mean, at the time, because I've been a creative, I just took advantage of just being in that class, and we had to create a film as a project with one of my friends. But while we were doing that, we did a lot of I guess you could say the back work as far as looking at Hitchcock films and looking at just different films that so she was telling us and teaching us about foreshadowing and foretelling and the examples. And I think that's why I really became being a fan of really Hitchcock films, because I think one of my favorite films from Hitchcock is The Rope. But anyway, the question you asked was, how did I know, when I know I was a filmmaker? So even then I didn't know. So now we fast forward to 2015, where I had I was living in St. Louis at the time, but then I moved back to Atlanta, where a bunch of my friends, and I just picked up my iPhone and I would record my friends grilling. We like grilling, we like grilling out. And for a while, so I started we were just recording our times just hanging out. And then I took it one day, because at the time iPhone had movie maker on this phone, or iMovie, and I would edit all the stuff in iMovie. And so basically, even like now, if you go online to YouTube, you'll see episodes of this web series called Chefing in Atlanta. And that's kind of where it started.
Oh my God, Derrick, you were so ahead of your time, because it's only in the last several months that I know that there's a thing that is about grilling TV shows. I didn't even know that existed. And then I saw this show one day and it was absolutely entertaining and fabulous. This guy he's Caribbean. I think he's from the Bahamas or something like that, a chef who grills. And then my friend who I was just staying with, her eldest son is into grilling and all these shows, and they call him the meat chef.
Okay.
I mean, I just didn't even know this existed. So you were totally ahead of your time.
Yeah, and so when we was doing it, like my friends just like, man, we capturing all, like, kind of like documenting these times that we're having together, and they were really entertained by. I think we were just entertaining ourselves for real. Like we put it out public, but I think we really just entertaining ourselves. So and during that time when I lived in St. Louis, I befriended a young lady by the name of Kyria Williams, who did stage plays. And so I would go to her stage plays. I would help. I really liked what she was doing. And at one particular moment, I said, "Hey, what can I do to help you in what you were doing?" Now, prior to that, we befriended one another really because we was in the insurance industry together. And then she told me that she was doing stage plays, so on and so forth. So at that time, I just started helping her with her stage plays as far from a marketing standpoint. And just one of her stage plays that was just really good, I thought, in my opinion. I said, "Hey, I think we can make a movie." That's all I know. Now, mind you, I've never been to film school really. I have no experience at all. I
knew about foreshadowing and
I knew enough. I think I knew enough that we could do something. And literally at the time, I thought I was going to shoot this film using an iPhone. Okay. Let's go with that. But a friend of mine gave me like a Sony DSLR camera, and he said, "Hey, why don't you just try this out?" And I never really wanted to, because it just was something new to me and I didn't want to pick it up. But eventually I did pick the camera up. And then from that moment, that's when I really had this conversation with my friend and say, let's just make a movie and see what we can do. And so that's pretty much my introduction into filmmaking. I think once we did it, a lot of people, as far as locally and where we were at the time, really enjoyed it. We had it out on YouTube, and it kind of went from there. So I don't want to, I want to talk your head off on just that, but I'm just kind of giving this precursor of like at least how that's where the introduction became as far as filmmaking.
So you basically took your friend's stage play, turned it into a film, shot it yourself. You were the camera person?
Yeah, I was the camera person, the director, the editor. Yeah, and then I put it all together.
You put it up on YouTube, and I guess that led you to start thinking about what else you could do with the film.
And so from that point, so what we did when we premiered it, we actually, we had it released into a local theater there. We had a lot of people come out. I think we showed it like 3 times. Had a great attendance locally. And from there, we just really got excited about that. It was like, a lot of people really talked about the film. They really enjoyed it. So from that point, of course, now we're like, hey, let's see if we could take this other stage play, which was called at the time, Marriage Works If You Work It. And then we took that stage play and created A New Husband for Christmas. And then from there, of course, we found distribution. And I would say from there is when we really identified like, hey, if we can make this a career for ourselves, I don't care about getting rich, but if we can make a career where we don't have to go back to working for somebody else, are you willing to do that? And we was like, yeah, we're all in. So we we just really made sure that so at this point, it was no longer a hobby. It was nothing.
Right.
It's no longer like, hey, let's see if we can do it. No, now it's like, okay, we got to make money if we're going to do this. So let's figure out how we can make money to make it marketable and, and go from there.
So Derrick, what was that first film called?
The Wake Up Call.
The Wake Up Call. So, and that was from a stage play. Was that a faith-based film?
Yeah, and all our films are faith-based films. They are inspirational faith-based films.
Right. And so, because first of all, you said you put it up on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get an audience on YouTube?
So here's the thing. So
because you said that before, you said you showed it at the theater.
Right. So the theater was first. Yeah, the theater was first, of course. The premiere in the theater was first. And now, so mind you, let me say this for everybody who's out here. We didn't have a place where to go. Mind you, we didn't have an idea. We never thought about how we're going to distribute a film. We never thought about it. All we were doing was seeing if we can make a film and to see how people looked at it, how do they view it. And then from there is where, so we put it on YouTube, and it was just out there. We had it on YouTube. At the time, we probably only had maybe 200 followers and probably only had maybe 3,400 views on it. Okay. So when we made A New Husband for Christmas, now here's the thing. Now, when we made A New Husband for Christmas and we got distribution from A New Husband for Christmas and it got out there, all of a sudden we saw an uptick in a month where we went from 3,400 views to 91,000 views on The Wake Up Call. I promise you that's not a farce. That is very true.
Oh my goodness.
And we were trying to figure it out. So we went from, and then not only that, we went from 200 followers to over 899 followers in a month. So basically, no one knew who we were, but I think because they saw A New Husband for Christmas, maybe people researched like, well, let me see who this company is. Yep. I don't know. And so we went from like 91,000 views in a month.
So I love to stick with the first film and maybe in your case, the first and the second film, but sure. I love to talk about the first film because a lot of times when people get to their 10th film, they forget that they're not making their 10th film the same way they made the first film. And the first film, you just sort of said, okay, we're going to just do this. And when you put it up on the theater and you saw people really were interested and they liked it, what did you learn from that? What did you gather from that?
What I learned from that was that we had a movie that resonated with people. The storyline dealt, and I felt that we were tapping into a market that was very underserved.
Right.
I think there's a lot of people that want to see faith-based films, but let's be honest, there's not a lot of faith-based films that resonate with my culture, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I can watch a lot of like one of my aspirations for films in my genre is the Kendrick brothers. I think their films are awesome, phenomenal. But at the same time, I still don't feel they really connect with my culture of people that's looking for certain things. So I think that's the thing that we identify with. So we wanted to make sure we were creating stories that we could connect with, of people of faith that really could connect with, that they, that matches what, hey, I know that situation, or I've been in that situation before. And we don't want to water it down. We want it to be raw, but not to a point that's distasteful or outside of the context of what a faith-based film should be, put it that way.
Well, I'm not necessarily personally a faith-based film fan, although I love your films. But what in my research on faith-based films, I was on the one hand very surprised about the amount of cultural diversity that I saw on the channels such as Pure Flix and the other big channels. I found that there was quite a lot of cultural diversity. But I still think that African-American audiences are so underserved, hugely underserved. And so one of the conversations I have with one of my African-American clients is that, I told her, she's a very beginner filmmaker, although she'll have 2 feature films finished pretty quickly. But, I said, when you go and show your film locally, you know, to your people. She made one in Arkansas and one in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I said, when you show your film, I know what's going to happen. What's going to happen is the audience is going to be amazed at seeing a film where they see themselves on film.
Right.
You know, and she didn't really get what I was talking about until she showed the film in a theater. And people, one after the other, after the other, after the other, said, that was us up there. Yeah. And I know this because it happened to me, you know, many years ago, when I was when I was living in Miami. I was working for Miami-Dade Community College, and an Afro-Caribbean director called Sergio Hiral came. He's an internationally famous director, and he escaped from Cuba and escaped with some video copies of his films, and we showed all the films. And they show the African-Cuban experience from the first Africans arriving in Cuba all the way up to 1959, when the government said, no, we're not allowing you to make that film, and he left.
Right.
So the first film that we showed, we were doing a series of 6 of his films, and I was going to be the person doing the Q&A. And you know me, you know, I can talk. And we showed his film, which was the earliest in the sequence, and I couldn't talk. It's still, when I tell this story, it brings tears to my eyes. I couldn't talk. And this film was in Spanish. It was about Afro-Cubans. It wasn't about Trinidadians, but it was the first time I had ever seen my history on the screen. The first time. And it just hit me so hard, I couldn't speak. You know, and my family, you know, when I was a kid, my family sat together and watched Roots. And, you know, Roots told a history of slavery, but it told it felt like it was over there. It felt like it was America and it was different. But, you know, so I had this experience where I was left completely unable to speak, even I was supposed to be doing a job, I couldn't do it. And I went to Sergio the next day and apologized. And he gave me a list of books like this to read about. He basically put me through a master's program in what I call comparative slavery, and looking at all the different islands and how it was different with different countries. And anyway, I'm on a digression here, but just to say, I have had that experience.
Yeah, and I think, and that's the thing, and I think that's important. So I continue to look at that, because one of the other things, when we started looking at a lot of the comments that we got from individuals who are watching, even who watched The New Husband for Christmas, you know, here's one of the biggest things that stick out to me from from somebody who left a review, and they stated that it was nice to see people that look like me. Number one, it was nice to see plus size women that look like me.
Yeah.
It was nice to see like people who didn't live a lavish lifestyle that look like regular people there, because I think we really look at keeping people connected, like working class folks, right? That's there, you know, you don't see it. You have to be honest, there's a large gap for someone who's very successful in the sense of maybe being an attorney, a doctor who's making like 6 figures, but there's an average amount of people who don't make that. So like when you saw our characters were like blue collar workers. There was no one who had a lavish like lifestyle. And I think a lot of people connected with that. So that leads me to also know that you don't, so this is gonna go both ways, but there are some people say that you need a big star to make your films work. I guess you do, depending on what type of crowd and the amount of money that you're looking to make. I get it. But also I like the fact that we're working with a lot of young independent newcomers who have the talent and the skill set, just as good as some other actors that's out there being exposed. So I mean, it goes both ways. Now don't get me wrong, I don't want to just throw anybody in the film. I want to have somebody who has a skill set, talent, and a gift, but the storyline itself, we just try to be relative to regular everyday people for the most part.
Yeah, and I I feel as though there's a tendency with other films I've seen by African-American filmmakers to go with either the kind of crime and gang story, or to go with this very upscale, very rich, aspirational kind of thing, which is fun in its own way. But showing ordinary people living ordinary lives, that is almost something that nobody sees.
Right. And we see a lot of this
Netflix all day.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, we see a lot of the stereotypes. Like you made a good point. Like, I mean, how many orange jumpsuits am I going to see in a film of people of color? I mean, that's not, I personally don't connect with. That's not me. I don't know that story. I never lived a drug lifestyle. That's not my story. So I just believe in, I just want to tell, we want to, like, so I want to say we, because my team, we want to tell uplifting, encouraging, inspirational films. Like at the end of the day, when I walk out of film, I want to feel good. It's kind of like when I go see a Marvel film. I like the superheroes. I like at the end, it's gonna be good. I'm gonna walk out feeling like I'm a superhero. It's gonna
work out.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's probably one of the reasons. I mean, when you talk about films that resonate from the underserved African American community, that's probably one of the great reasons that, you know, Black Panther has done so well. They didn't know that. And we talked about this on Clubhouse when we talked about this on Clubhouse when we said about Eddie Murphy when he went to make it come into America. They stated to him, like, yeah, he's a big star, but no one in his culture has made a rom-com to be successful. But we know how that turned out.
Yes. Well, back then, I'm not sure when, maybe somebody could look it up, but when Coming to America came out, was it the 90s?
80s, no.
80s.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I want to say 80s, 89 maybe.
Anyway, I ran a cinema from 1980 to into the 90s. And so I dealt with distributors all the time. And we were constantly told that there were no Black audiences. I mean, this is something I've told this story several times on my interview series, but I was told that all the time. And I was living in Miami. The cinema was on Miami Beach. And back in Miami, you know, just a few miles away, the cinema that I went to, everybody was Black. You know, so like my lived experience was that these people didn't know what they were talking about, but that was the going, you know, belief.
Right.
And it really hasn't changed until today, when we really are data driven in our information. And of course, there are African-American audiences. And thank you, Diane, 1988, Coming to America.
I was close. I was close. I was only off by 1 year.
I first thought 80s, and then I thought, no.
I know. See, it's like this. It's like on the cusp of 80. Like, is it 88, 90? It's not, but I don't think it's 90. So.
But, you know, I mean, we're talking about African-American audiences, but I think that it's the same for every underserved audience.
Right.
And when you expand it out to working class, oh my God.
Yeah. I thought that was, so it's something now I keep in mind a lot. You know, I think when we did it, I don't even know if, and I'll be honest with you, I would say that is definitely the intention of the writer. Like she definitely always comes off. She wants to make sure that it's represented correctly. Like I say, everybody doesn't have and I'm telling you, it was just good to see people. Like, I'm just glad to see that it was nobody who lived this upscale lifestyle that was just unbelievable. Like, so, yes. I mean, it's and it's good to see that, because I think we should see ourselves like that. But, you know, we're just talking about everyday regular people. That's all.
Yeah. So it's unusual from me, my perspective, listening to filmmakers all day, every day, it's unusual to hear filmmakers say, okay, well, we made our first film. Now we want to be able to let go of our jobs. So how is this going to work? But to me, that's exactly the way I want everybody to think. So how do we turn this into a way that we can make a living? So what were the different decisions that you made for your next film?
Well, I think a lot of things that work for us. Okay, so here's a lot of things I think that works in our favor for us, because one, we don't need an editor. Well, I'm not saying we don't need an editor, but I edit my own films.
Uh-huh.
I'm the cameraman for my own films.
Uh-huh. Well, still today, you're the
Still
camera.
today, still today, and
Okay.
they actually they always say to me like, "Are you going to use two cameras?" I don't know. I just need to see it. It's a control thing for me maybe at this point. I don't know. Until I find somebody who's just as skilled to seeing it the way I do. Of course, I would definitely want somebody else to do it. But right now, I'm still that person that does it. I create all the marketing pieces for what we do. I just have a vision for like where I see this. And I think, and I'll be honest, I credit a lot of that from working behind the scenes, working at Blockbuster, because I looked at all of this SOP, all of this, like when I'm used to seeing all the cover boxes and how movie titles are shown.
Yeah.
So I sometimes, even when I work with people today that working on different projects, and I create trailers, and I'm not saying I'm the best at creating trailers, but I'm continuing to learn and to be good at that. But I just try to tell them, like, I'm telling you, this particular thing works. This is going to be what needs to be said. Sometimes, well, I think you're showing too much. No, you need to. Like, they don't know you, so you got to find something to bring them into it. So anyway, I said all that to say is that I know we're able to save money in that area because I'm the one that does a lot of that. So
do you pay yourself 3 times?
No, I don't. That's the downside. I don't pay myself 3 times. But what I will say is
next time.
Well, and that's
give yourself a raise and pay yourself for all your jobs.
And I think that's the thing now, as we move from A New Husband for Christmas to The Gift of Grace, we put a budget in place. We wanted to make sure all of our actors were being paid a fee. So if I was to be transparent, when we make the wake up call, there was a lot of volunteers. The actors volunteered. But we made sure that, hey, they were, we made sure that every day they came on set, we had craft services. We made sure that like our wardrobe stylist, I think at the time when she even, and she's doing very well now in St. Louis as she has a boutique. But what I like is that everyone that gets involved with us should be able to grow from us in some way or shape and form. But like I say, now, ever since The New Husband for Christmas, when we started paying people, and again, when elaborate salaries that we could pay anybody, but as we continue to grow to each particular project, we're able to pay our actors more. And that's what we look to do. We look to pay our crew, our actors more. On the downside of that, if that means that we have to not pay ourselves to make sure at least they get paid, we do that. But we've been able to sustain ourselves through this process with really trusting in God in the process, because that's our source of why we do what we do. And we believe that we're called to do what we do. So that's why I say so when we started, it was never about money. When we started, it was never about money. It was like, hey, let's just do this. But now we're like, hey, we believe in God to continue to give us what we need. And I'm telling you, we've been seeing success, from our standpoint, in our films since we've been distributed. And I just believe we're reaching a base of people that have never been that's been underserved. So yeah. I don't know if I answered your question, but I'm just saying that it's our mindset now it does have to make sense now. Like, we have to do it with as a business. It's no longer, hey, we're not trying anymore. Now we're like, hey, it's a business. So, and that's when we because at the time we were separated. We were KMW Productions and was Mullen Group Productions, because I was doing wedding films. When I'm not filming, I do wedding films and other projects. But now we joined and made our company called Fruit Bearing Studios. And now we're a company under one umbrella doing the exact same thing. It's kind of like what you see on the shirt, Fruit Bearing Studios.
Oh, nice. Oh, that is great. Fruit Bearing Studios.
So that's where we are now. So we're one company, and I'm telling you, we believe God. I mean, even our next project is coming up that we'll be filming next year. It's called The Company You Keep. And they'll be filming, and we already cast it and everything. So we'll be filming in March for that film.
And will that be in Atlanta that you shoot that?
This film will be shot in St. Louis. People ask me, so people ask me this all the time, like, why don't I shoot in Atlanta? And I say, right now, because of logistics and the relationships that we formed when we started filming, it's just easier to work with people that you're already used to working with, right, instead of starting all the way over. So this will be our last film that we'll shoot in St. Louis, and we're looking forward to it. We got a lot of great talent out of St. Louis that we continue to work with. We have a couple people there's another young lady that's from New York that will be in our film. There's someone else that's coming from Michigan, Arkansas. So when we auditioned, a lot of people asked us, did we did we have a nationwide call? And we didn't. We really I think we just have people that's paying attention and seeing us, and we're grateful for that. And we're finding other talents from other areas too, to add to what we're doing from a faith base. And I think what's happening is that we're seeing people who maybe want to work in an environment of faith-based believers.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
that they can connect with, and that serves with the values that they have, so.
Yeah. Yes, and that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's true for pretty much for every filmmaker, documentary filmmakers. When you're working on a project that really speaks to a particular cause, then you know that you're going to have people who are drawn to that cause. In this case, Christianity, faith, right. Working for God. But it means that you're going to get the people to come who are just desperate to be in that environment.
Yeah, true. And we want to be true to that. Like, we want to be true to that. Like, we want to make sure that even like what we do is, I just feel like when somebody comes on set with us, they walk away with like another seed, or we're watering the seed that God has already planted in them. So.
Nice. So when you got distribution that was for the second film, right?
A New Husband for Christmas, correct.
A New Husband for Christmas, you got distribution. So what did that change then, now that you actually got distribution? What was that experience like?
Well, what helped with that is that now these films are on platforms outside of just putting it on YouTube. We're able to reach an audience that may have never, seen our films before. So to be on Amazon, to be in more of an international space, right? Same thing with Tubi, to just be on that platform, I think it's giving us opportunity so people to see something else. I don't know. Like, so right now the experience has been is like, hey, we see a bigger audience. I think it's changed our worldview of how we were initially doing this. Because like I say, with the first film, we just put it out on YouTube, and then we had a base of people that we had locally from St. Louis and Atlanta that people that already knew us. But now to see people from all walks of life now, all cultures, and I think that's also good. I mean, I'm saying that because I've seen it. I remember a comment that came from somebody from, I believe it was Spain. And the lady said, this definitely is not, it's outside of our culture, but I enjoyed watching these characters. So it's just fun to see that. I think that's the thing. I think that's the motivating thing now, is that to know that we connect not only just our culture, but we expand in other people of faith. It's not just a Black experience. It's a Christian experience. And yes. I think that's what's important.
That's very interesting because like I was saying, when I ran the cinema, which was back in the 90s on Miami Beach, and they said there were no Black audiences, which I knew wasn't true, as they were looking at me and saying it to me. I knew it wasn't true. But now there are two vestiges of that I still hear. One is Black films don't sell outside America. That one's going away too, although the last bit is Black films don't sell in China, which I think is also probably ridiculous. And then the other one is Christian films don't sell outside the US. But again, my own research in faith-based films was that there were several. I found three different types of Christian films. One was films that were very much faith-based and anybody could enjoy, Christian or not Christian, but somebody who had a spiritual way of life thinking. The second type was very Christian, as in lots of biblical references and quoting from the Bible and things like that, I think would be more difficult for people of other faiths or no faith to enjoy. And then right. The third was kind of right-wing political propaganda, which I don't think is going to go past America, frankly. Not that there are not right-wing people, but it's a certain flavor, it's a right. certain flavor that's very American. So, but the first group and the second group, I don't see why they shouldn't have international audiences. So what is your experience with that? Are you maybe is with your Amazon and Tubi deals, are those international? Do you only know who's watching if they make a comment, or how does that work with the international piece?
Okay, so that's a good question. And this goes back to, be honest, our last conversation that we had on Clubhouse when we were talking about analytics, transparency. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So my current analytics, I'm not able to see really where my audience is coming from. Now I can only go by two things. One is like, so for our films, we created bit.ly links, because when we started promoting ourselves, like, so we know the power of Amazon, we know the power of Tubi, and I think we're still learning the power of Tubi, or both of them really.
Right.
Because we just know that, hey, it's going to be in front of their platform, the people that they have subscribing to their platform, right? Uh-huh. But how do we know what can we control? So I created bit.ly links on our end just to put out there when we're doing different boosts to advertise for our projects, so we could see where they come from. So when you click on that link from bit.ly, I can see like, hey,
you're so smart. My God,
bit.ly. That's why I say I can see where now that, okay, that person was in the UK, or I can see this person was from Nigeria. That's when I'm saying, like, I know that we have international reach. And again, I don't know how large that is. I'm just, again, these are smaller percentages, but it's a percentage no less.
Yes.
So anyway, that's what I mean. Like, I'm looking at all these different things. So that's why I say, even like now, we're looking at how do we get more transparency so we can really look at our analytics, because we want to control our destiny. We want to control like how people are reached, because if we're not seeing I don't want to wait 6 months out to see what I can change. I need to change that within at least the next 30 days. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think it's important with any type of distribution that you have, and I'm saying this for even distributors, you got to make it where there's a level of transparency, because we live in an industry now, or in this age now, that transparency is like this. You be honest with you, a lot of the stuff that you see on social media, you wouldn't see if it wasn't because of transparency. So transparency is important now. So everybody needs to see that. So that's what we're looking at, and how we can make sure that we're, I guess, touching other people outside of like domestic. We want to see how we're doing on the international side too.
And so with Amazon and Tubi, do they take international, and are they both non-exclusive? Because that's the other thing we've been talking about, this issue of non-exclusivity.
From my end, it's more of a, I think, exclusive. I'm not sure if I'm answering that. Yeah, but I think ours is more exclusive.
Okay, that's interesting. So this is maybe something we should talk about offline, but I happen to have a really great, I'm a British Trinidadian, and he's a British Jamaican, and his business is selling in Africa. He sells reality TV and sports and so on. And so one of the things that I've learned from my colleague is that, Africa is a major market that basically no American sales agents know about. So I really want to see what we can do in Africa. And from what he has told me, for now, I believe we can actually do better business in Africa than here. If it was a film that was culturally relevant, which your films definitely are, not everything is culturally relevant, but so I would be very interested to see what a sale of your films in Africa would look like. So we'll have to talk about that.
I think it's funny you say that, because I would say that is something that we've been looking at. And like I say, when I looked at the numbers of people who clicked from Nigeria, that was something I said, hey, that's something like, I've done that. I've like boosted, with that preference in mind, like, hey, with the analytic in mind, like I want to, boost this to Nigerians or anyone, in the African community. So it's something that we're looking at. So we're going to continue to, to monitor that and see if that's something that we can continue to expand and build on.
Yes.
I agree with you.
We definitely need to talk about that. So what's your next film going to be that you're shooting in 2023, right? Early in 2023, your last St. Louis film.
Well, the most recent film that we did was The Gift of Grace, and that's still circulating right now because that was released November of 2000. I'm sorry, December of 2020, 21. I had to figure out where we are now. Coming at the end of 2022, but yeah, so that was released and so it's still new, it's still fresh. I think that's the thing too that people forget, that even though your film came out a year ago or 2 years ago, it's still, again, you got to remember, people still haven't seen that. There's a lot of people that still have not seen that film. So yeah. And we're finding that out. That's why I say that's something we're still finding out, that, you know, that people are still going back to watch. And of course, with every film that we do, I feel that we get better from a filmmaking aspect. So sometimes I cringe because I think about my old film, like think about the first one. I'm like, oh, well, you know, there's a lot of different things I see in that, you know, but as a lot of people at the end of the day, they don't see the things that we see as artists, because we could be a little more critical of our work. They see the story. That's the thing I have to remember. So the next film that we have is coming out.
And I just want to put a plug in for The Gift of Grace. The Gift of Grace is just wonderful. And, you know, when I watched it, I wasn't necessarily thinking, well, I guess I do always think about these things about, oh, look, this is a film that I can really see there's an underserved audience, this is reaching, and so all of those things, yes, but I just enjoyed it tremendously. It, you know, I just totally enjoyed it. Oh, Kremina is one of my clients, and she just gets the gold star every week for being the best student. She just studies everything. So she's watched the film too. Okay. I hope you enjoyed it, Kremina. But it's a really wonderful, wonderful film. And how is it doing? Do you know yet? Is that too soon to know?
No, well, it's funny you say that. We just got some numbers back, and I'll say that it's definitely it's impressed us going. Okay, so when you have to look at you got to look at, okay, so everything to me is in seasons, right? So you look at like first quarter, third quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth. Generally, the fourth quarter so far since we've released films, of course, we can only go by our first film at this time was A New Husband for Christmas, but it's a holiday film, so it's always hard to look at that because, you know, fourth quarter, we know that's going to be our biggest numbers.
Yes. Uh-huh.
But no, really, but even with that, like going into from first quarter to second quarter, it's exceeded our expectations on that end. We look at those quarters being like the numbers, like where it's going to be like, don't expect too much because we know it's just different, you know, that's a different season. But no, it's actually exceeded expectations. In fact, it exceeded our expectations, knowing that you and I were talking about this when we talked about the power of Tubi, and then we talked about Amazon. And but it was so funny this time around, in this particular quarter, no less, is that the bigger numbers came from Amazon than it did with Tubi. So that was surprising.
Okay.
So that was surprising.
Which particular quarter are you talking about?
First and second quarter. Well, second quarter. So I'm talking about second quarter. Yeah, second quarter. Yeah.
Yeah, because I do think that when a film gets released, there is some time that things take. I don't know if Tubi is a bit slower than Amazon or anything like that, but you know, to show revenue or to show viewings, that's something that is a possibility.
Right.
Did they both go? Did they go on those two platforms at the same time?
Yes, they did. Yeah, they're both competing right now on the same platforms right now. Right. But
right.
And I don't look at it as a compete, because what I see is, I look at it as that, hey, it's about access. There's some people, hey, I don't want, like, not me, I'm saying, but there's some people who say I don't want to pay for a subscription, so I'll look at Tubi because it's free. But then there's some people who they're shoppers of Amazon, so they already have Amazon Prime. So for them, from an Amazon Prime user, it's free. Yeah. Right. So, so that's what we're looking at. So, I think Amazon is still, I think everything at the end of the day is how it's being marketed, you know, but I'm just telling you this because I know we didn't push a lot on Amazon. We pushed Tubi. So to know that most of our efforts was even pushed on Tubi at the time, that those numbers resulted more for the Amazon brand versus for the Tubi brand.
Right. That's very, very interesting. And, you know, now, for example, now that I'm here in Trinidad, I'm very aware of this, but nearly, I don't know, I wouldn't want to guess the number, but I would say something like 90% of Amazon content is not available here. And then the only way that I could watch Tubi or something like that would be if I had a VPN. So,
right.
you know, in there, and that is true of many, many places in the world, many places. So it doesn't, even though I see on my dad's TV that it says Amazon Prime,
right.
You know, I know that he doesn't have an Amazon account, and most of the content that I can see in America, he can't see, you know, so it's never been any point. But so there are all these gaps in the market,
Right.
especially internationally, that I think a lot of Americans are not really aware of, because they're used to seeing things from America.
And I think to your point though, is like, since, you know, I joined the space with you, and why I like your platform so much, because you know, we're talking about, like, say, you want to make a movie, but you want to make a movie that makes money. Because what I could tell you this, it definitely takes money to make a movie. I mean, I can go back from when we started making films. You know, we had no money, but it cost us probably $25,000 to make our first film. And that came from our own pockets. I mean, every film that we've done came from our own pockets. So, but it's been worth it. But it's been worth it to learn it, you know, so that we can be on this end of it now, where we can like continue to grow and you know, finance ourselves if we need to. So that's the biggest piece. So we just try to make sure that we're doing everything right. And that's why I say now, it's just, you don't want to make a film just to get it out there and rush to get it out there, because really, why are you rushing to get it out there? You want to make sure you put all the right things in place so you can market it effectively, so it can make the money that you wanted to make. But if you rush and just put it out there without a marketing plan, you know, you just kind of throwing it to the wind to see which way it blows. Mm-hmm. And that's not I don't think that's good business.
Right. So so the next film that you're shooting is February 23. And did you raise money for that, or are you basically self-financing? How are you doing it?
Same thing, self-financing the project. That's what we're doing right now. And like I say, that's why we're looking to shoot it next year. We were like, say, excited about the next film. So we would go right to the next thing. But what we were missing by doing that is we would stop promoting the film that we just finished just to start working on the next film. So we got to start being, you know, better. We got to make money. So now we have to make better sense of what we're doing. So that's where we are.
That's a really good point. Are you spending money on marketing? How are you doing your marketing?
Yes, we're definitely spending money on marketing. We talked about this. You guys, I'm just telling everybody who's on now, and when you watch this, you got to join the clubhouse and come in on Tuesday at noon Eastern time to to be in the room where we're talking about this type of stuff, because it's very informational. I think everyone walks away with nuggets. So, but yeah, you definitely have to look at that, because you'll miss it. So the budget. So you need to have a good budget. And I forgot who said this when we were in the room, but someone even said that you need to have a budget, maybe even $30,000 for marketing for your film, depending on how much it costs you to make the film. You kind of do the math. I would say at least 10 to 20% of that money needs to be towards your marketing, and that's what we're learning more of too. So definitely now we're making more room from the marketing side of things when we do this. We're talking now about how the steps to marketing a film. I would say this, Joanna, the way I look at our films today is like, it's almost like the Hollywood box office like type deal. Like I look at like, okay, when we make our film, we're going to do a premiere. We're going to look to do maybe some premieres where we can do some screenings in different areas before we go to the next stage. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like how we've always started that. Like when we did it, we've always did a premiere. We always did a premiere in a theater, and we would capture that footage, share the reviews with people.
Right.
And that's kind of just the sizzle. You want to create the sizzle reel for all that stuff. So over time, people looking at that like, hey, I need to check this out. People talking about it. Let's see what this is. So and we live in a world of social media. So you gotta maximize the opportunities that you can use with social media.
So for the last few minutes, I'd love to open it up for questions. Everybody who's been on here before knows I like for you to come on camera, raise your hand, ask a question. Derrick is doing Cremona. Yes, come on down. Ask your question.
Hi, Derrick.
Hey,
It's
Kirby, how
nice
you
to
doing?
see you.
Nice
Joanne,
to
I
see you.
love the art behind you. I really enjoyed every time I look at it. Yeah. So I just want to say about the movie because first, and then I would introduce myself and ask the question. So the gift of grace, me being a non-faith, not part of the community, it was very interesting to look into it, the rhythm of it. There is this explanation. The explanation was genius. Yes. And then the character, this character that sort of sneaked in and took over the story. I found that, it's another dimension to it. So I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I would recommend.
Well, I was
Watch
gonna say,
it, people.
I think that's one of the things I think I take a lot of joy out of, because especially for somebody who's not a faith, like a Bible toter, I'll say it like that. But for somebody to come from that side and not look at it like, I'll say it like this: I don't want anybody to come and see that it's a faith-based film. I just want you to see, when you see a film that you walk away like, I didn't know I was gonna get hit with that. I didn't know that this was this type of film. And that's basically what I want people to walk away with. Is we do want people of faith to be encouraged and inspired, but more importantly, I think we just want people in general to see something from different walks of life, to see something told in a different way. So that explanation scene is, whether you're a believer or not, you have to think about the relationships that you have with people, and I think that explanation scene is big, and I think it speaks volumes to anybody. And so, like I say, you resonated with it, no matter if you're a person of faith or not.
Yeah, and also the characters, a lot of them, they just spoke what they thought. There was not like holding back. It was just like, here's the truth. I enjoy that. It's just people being honest, or a bit straightforward.
Yeah.
I like that. So that's related to me. So okay, so my name is Carmena Ivanova Daoust, and I'm a filmmaker based in Texas. My love for Mustangs prompted my family's move across the country and the start of a Mustang training business. As a business owner, sharing a life with Native American Mustangs, it was an honor to be invited into the Native American world of Mustangs and share a story through my lens. So my first feature documentary is Mustang Point: Keys to the Kingdom. In the Wild West, where natural resources have been managed since time immemorial, a single father takes us on an adventure into a Native American reality where the love for Mustangs reigns. So it's in post-production now and will be completed in June next year. So my question is, you mentioned, when you spoke about Nigeria, you mentioned that you boosted something. So what exactly did you boost?
Oh, okay. So when on social media, as far as Instagram and Facebook, you can pay to boost that post to other areas. So, and you can be very specific to where you want that post to boost. So when you're selecting the options, it gives you an option. Do you want it just in the US? Do you want a specific, area? Like you could say Nigeria. It could be, so you can be specific to where you want your ad to be boosted. So that's one of the good things I like about that, is you can be very intentional, and you could be, so that way you can guarantee, and that way you can really see like how much came from that boost itself. You can look at the analytics and see how many people clicked on that. You can see how many views, how many 3-second views. So those analytics are very important, and I think they're great to read. And when you boosted it, that it's really, or it's either, it's more intentional than being organic, but you can also see like where it's going, like what's activity that's been happening with it. So
yeah. And you use Bitly for that? Like that's the base, and then from there.
Yeah, I would say, I don't get paid for this, but I would say, yeah, definitely go to create a Bitly link, and you have to pay for a Bitly subscription. You have to upgrade your Bitly subscription so you can actually create it, and where you can put a name on it. If you look in the chat, you'll see I posted a link that says Bitly, but it says Bitly, then it gives the last bit, the gift of grace. So people, when they see it, so because we live in this world now that people are kind of hesitant to click a link, especially if it doesn't say specifically what it is. So I would say, I'll just admonish you to pay for what you want, pay for what the results that you want to get. Don't be shy to spend your money on something that's important to what you need, because some people won't do it. They're just like, I want the free one. Well, just understand, free don't give you what you need. But if you pay for it, you can create what you want out of it, and it'll pay for itself if you do it right. So that, I think that's the biggest thing. Anything that you're going to invest in, if you pay for it and use it the correct way, it's going to pay for itself. It's going to give you a return on your investment. So Bitly, pay for the upgrade so you can create your own tags so people know what they're clicking on.
But I would also say,
thank you so much.
To your question, Cremina, is that, for example, if you wanted to make a Facebook ad, as you're building your ad, you go through a window that will say who is the audience, and you could pick Montana, you could pick Kentucky, you could pick, so you can define where the audience is, where you put your ads. So
and just to add to that, Joanna, you can also, it's the other thing too that's on there. It's like if I wanted to, I think there's something where I can give it to, like, is this Baptist church, or it's different things. It's so many different things that you can really funnel how you want that to look. So
fabulous. Thank you.
Thanks, Crimina.
All right, Jimmy, what's your question? Oh, I love your glasses today.
Yeah, the glasses are hot. That's the first thing I saw.
And thank you for plugging Nigeria. Always grateful to promote us. My question, so the question around distribution, you talked about a little about what you're doing with Amazon and Tubi. I'd like to know where international sales come in terms of sales agents or distributor, how that's looking for you guys. And also, you said merchandise and ancillary products. Is that part of your strategy for generating revenue? And if it is, how does that work together? And the final question, and if you don't have time for this one, you can definitely
go ahead.
It's around, you talk about the switching between you're wrapping up one film, at least production, and beginning to develop another, and realizing that you have to continue to, you're about to have a baby, a film baby. You have to now raise it, but you're planning the next one, and you have to really raise the baby. Otherwise, you're not going to get any value from it. I have found it very difficult switching that mindset between being in production, post-production, and then having to switch over to even do some basic marketing. How do you intend to be able to manage that, kind of going back between being in development and also being in marketing for different projects as a small business?
Okay. I'm going to go back to your first question. So the distribution that we have right now is they're pretty much the ones that's kind of pushing it. And I'll just say like this, for them, it's just on platforms. Okay. So again, they're the ones who determine, like, hey, well, we're going to put it on this platform for us, and then it'll be the next one. So there's stages in how they do that, and that's fine. What we're looking at now is we just want, again, to go back to the whole transparency thing, and what can I use, and look at analytics to see where everything's going, where is it going, where is it coming from, so I can be do more target marketing, right? So we're looking at something now where we just want to, maybe change that so we have a little more control, so we have more target marketing. So that might be something that may not really answer your question, but just trying to give you an idea is that you have to be intentional about where you want it to go. And like you said, I want to see what markets are really paying attention to me. So the only way I'm able to see that now is just through reviews to see, for the most part. That's how I'm able to see it. To answer your other question, that is definitely something that you're going to have to switch your mind to, right? Because if you're making films, you got to think about it like this. And I'm just telling you from my own personal experience, we'll make one film and we jump right into the next one, get ready to make the next one. And that's great. We're excited about it because we're so amped about it. But we were just leaving a lot of stuff on the table because we wasn't taking the time to nurture the baby. The baby was born, but the baby wasn't being coddled. The baby was born, but the baby wasn't being fed. So the baby ain't being fed, it's going to be malnourished. And that's how our pockets are going to look if we don't really feed the baby. So we can plan for the next baby, but we need to make sure that we nurture the baby so it can walk on its own before we go to getting the next baby. I'm using that analogy because that I think that's going to stick in your mind the most. So that's where we are on that. And you have to change your mindset on that, because I don't want trust me, the other baby that's going to be born is not going anywhere because it's not born yet. It's a seed. You just got to keep watering that, but you still got to make sure you nourish the baby that you got, that you just gave birth to, so that it can grow.
So for me, I understand the why and the necessity. Just how are you, like Derrick personally, managing that switch. It's like, okay, Monday is all about the baby one, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday is everybody else. Or will I hire, like if we were a big company, you'd hire a different marketing team, right?
Right.
Who continues doing it. The one person is like in the morning before lunch, I do
Okay.
marketing. I mean,
I got you. I got
meditation.
I got you on that. So we recently just did this. We have currently hired a social media strategist for us to help manage and market our product. Now, before I was doing it, and you're right, I could not do that. I'm not able to do that. And that's the thing. I had to start understanding that we're not able to do all these things. And through the current push of my business partner, Kyrie Williams, we was talking about this, like, hey, we need to really hire social media marketers, but you got to hire the right person who can connect with you. And we went through a couple others until we really connected with somebody who understood who we were. So we really connected with people who are just like us. She was a faith-based Christian person. She watched our films, and she said, and once she watched, she said, I now know what it is that you do. And now she's marketing, and we sent her all the material, all the stuff I was using. She has access to my Canva, everything, and she creates that stuff now for us. We have meetings every week to kind of touch base on where we are for marketing, where we're seeing our growth as far as followers, so on and so forth. And so to answer your question, yes, you're going to have to basically find somebody to do that. And again, it goes back to ROI. A lot of people don't want to spend money because they're trying to, I'm gonna just say it like this. You got to understand that you're in a season of, you may not be in a season to harvest just yet. You're in a season to sow. So even as you get money back in from your project, it ain't the time. It's not time to eat right now. It's time to sow it back into the ground. So we look at sowing our seed back into the ground. We not where we want to be yet. So I just say in this business, you got to give it 10 years. And a lot of people don't want to hear that because we live in a microwave era. We live in a microwave era. We want to feel like, oh, we need to be hot now. But you're going to realize like, no, it takes time to do this. Like ain't no baby that was born that became a teenager overnight. It took years to do that. So that's the same thing. I mean, I don't know. You started with that. I got me started on that. But that's the thing. Like it's just about that baby. It's like that baby got to be coddled. It's got to be nurtured and it's got to grow. You got to give it time to do that. Even while, hey, maybe I'm gonna get the nanny to raise my baby right now while I go work on the next project.
Yeah.
So
because one thing I want to say for Jimmy, this is just what I observe with filmmakers, is that Derrick is telling you his strategy today on film number 3, right?
Yeah.
Film number 1, he was doing it all himself.
Yeah.
And,
film number 2, doing it all myself.
yeah. So just for where you're at with your first film, I don't know, maybe the easiest thing would be to say from Tuesday from 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock, I'm doing marketing, and maybe make a little block like that or something, because otherwise you're still in post-production and in the creative.
And Jimmy, and it's still those things like Joanne just said, it's still those things for me. So don't think like I don't just because my social media strategy is handled. No, there's some things I'm still doing on my end too. I don't just put that in nobody else's hands. They still doing it, but there's certain things I still do. But like you said, there's hey, Monday we doing this, Tuesday we talk about this. And that's how it is. As we're planning our next film, we have meetings on Mondays. We have a financial meeting on Tuesday. And then from there, I'm just talking to my business partner probably throughout the week about different things. But it's still a strategy to do that. So you just got to manage your time. Yeah.
I'm going to rush through the next 3 questions so we can get everybody.
Hey,
Jimmy. Go ahead, Mark.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Great. Derrick, my name is Mark Gordon. I'm an independent filmmaker working in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'm working on my second feature film. The first feature film is about to get a national broadcast over PBS stations that we're excited about. First of all, I just want to tell you that I really enjoyed hearing you speak, and I have a lot of respect for what you're doing. It's really exciting, and you hit it full on. I also admire that you've been doing your own social media. When we started our first film, we had a volunteer who set us up and created. We had like 2,500 people on our mailing list, but I'm not a social media person, and I can't even talk to our former volunteer without she wants $2,000 to pick up the phone. And I had this couple who'd moved here from Los Angeles who, were going to help me, make a fortune with my film, and charged me a fortune. They had LA prices, but they didn't have LA results. And I'm just not, I've got to figure out a slow way to get, up to speed so I can at least, make some posts once in a while. I'm a total troglodyte. So how would you advise someone to get started who's maybe in another generation, an older generation?
Mark, first of all, Mark, I'm gonna say it's a pleasure to meet you face to face via virtual, because we have spoken in the room on Clubhouse several times. So it's good to definitely see you. Mark, that's a good question. I will say I can resonate with you on that. That's actually what happened to us. We had somebody who was out of LA. They claimed to be this type of person to do X, Y, and Z. We spent too much money that they didn't deserve. And I have somebody now doing it for half the price and killing it. Giving me everything that they were supposed to do, that this other person was supposed to do, that this person is doing. So,
right.
And I think we, as entrepreneurs, it's kind of like that trial and error. Sometimes you're going to find that, but you're right. You got to be able to cut your losses as soon as you recognize that you're not getting the results that you're looking for.
Yeah.
I would say this, and again, I can only, because I credit myself because I had to learn it, but I would say Canva can be your best friend. Canva is what I use. I don't know if let me see something for a second. I just want to, if I'm able to share my screen. Am I able to do that, Joanne?
I can make that happen because of the power of
the dashboard
of Zoom.
Okay, let me know, and I just want to show by example.
Yeah, go ahead. Now you should be able to.
Okay.
Is that right?
Yeah, I got you. So you see my screen here.
Oh.
So let me just, I just want to share with everybody that's on this call and for those who's going to be looking at this. And I told you, when we make films, we think about it in advance, all these other things. I can't say that I'm telling you, all this stuff I learned. I became a photographer, all this stuff, right? So all these characters that you see right now, we had a photo shoot before we even shot the film. We just had a photo shoot. We got all the characters. We get them in all in we have this idea about what we want to do. I told you I used to work for Blockbuster. So anyway, Canva, I did all this in Canva. And I'm saying that and I believe in sharing wealth to other people. You can do this in Canva. Canva's where Canva makes it easier now. If you don't, I have Adobe Photoshop, but it takes too much time. But Canva is going to take these particular characters. Like when I shot all of them, they are all separate. I just shot them each separately by themselves. And then we kind of cut them, cropped them out, and then we created them and created this poster. But I'm saying all this to say that you have things like Canva at your disposal. And like I say, Mark, again, you may not be the person who'll be able to do this, but maybe you know somebody else. Maybe you have a daughter, or maybe you have a granddaughter. I don't know.
I'm a graphic designer.
There you go. So,
but I'm not a social media person. This is good.
Yes, but I'm just saying, you can do all these things, and then on the social media aspect, it's maybe just a matter of just understanding how to post. But start there first, and then from there, like say, there are other younger, aspiring graphic artists or advertisers who they're looking to get in this space. They don't get a shot because no one would touch them because they may not have the experience. But sometimes you just got to try it and see what you can get. And so I was just saying all that to say that this is just one of the things that you could possibly do from a do-it-yourself type of thing. Social media is challenging, but I say keep it simple. Don't complicate it. Sometimes just post and create wordings that will be engaging. And that's how we work too. So trust me, before we got a social media person, I didn't have that either, but I just had to find a way to find your audience and connect with them. And sometimes it's not always about posting. Sometimes you could do a story and talk to people and let them know what you're doing. That's some of the things that we did too, Mark. Like when we were making our films for New Husband for Christmas, we did a lot of behind the scenes, and we just shared it. We just shared those experiences behind the scenes with people on our stories. So that's another thing too.
And
keep it simple.
I would like to also say that when you talk about being an older person and being a troglodyte, I think you have a bit of a mindset, because anybody who can edit on Premiere Pro posts on Instagram.
Yes, that part. That part right there, Mark. Absolutely.
It just took 5 years for me to learn how to do it.
Mark, I was the same way. I mean, I'm gonna give you kudos. I'm a Premiere Pro user, but I'll be honest, I find myself using Final Cut. It's just faster for me. For me, it's about time. I need to get it out.
Yeah, I could do anything with Final Cut Pro 7, but I haven't been following with it. I mean, it just was so easy to do anything. But now I've got it down where I don't need to do camera movement, because I can do it all in editing, zooming and panning and moving in.
I have 4 minutes left before
Okay.
my next call. I want to get in.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Diane, go ahead.
First of all, Derrick, thank you so much. This has just been so incredibly inspiring. I'm also an independent filmmaker. I'm working on my first documentary called Are You Hearing Me? And it's a story celebrating female artists who have gone through either sexual or physical trauma, and it's anchored on my own story. And I realized so much of, I had to take a break, and I'm coming back into it. And I realized so much of it was, I wasn't able to talk about the certain pieces of my own story. And so I wasn't really engaging with the audience that I think ultimately I'll engage with. And so what I wanted to ask you about is that, in terms of self-financing, because I know that, I come from a tradition of like, no, one never self-finances. So I'd love to hear more about how that's working with you.
Diane, I will say this, thanks for chiming in. Thanks for the question. I seen you nodding your head back down on some of the things.
Yeah, no, it's been really fantastic.
I'm with you. Like, I agree with you. Like, I'd be honest with you, we looked at the investment opportunities. In the only thing I see when it comes to someone else that gets involved in your project that hasn't been with you from day one, it becomes something that I feel like I'm giving too much away to that individual when all they did was give me money. Does that make sense? If you're not,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so yeah, I would just say it like this. Yes, it may take me longer to do what I need to do because I'm financing myself, but sometimes in the end, it's worth it. I think sometimes we have to kind of be comfortable with the slow pace sometimes versus being the fast pace, because sometimes what are we really rushing to?
Right.
I mean,
I guess. So are you raising money to self-finance, or what are you doing? I mean,
so let me say this. On the New Husband for Christmas, we did raise some money. Like when we first, so we talked about the first project. That first project, we volunteered, The second project was like, okay, let's try Indiegogo, and we got some money from Indiegogo. It was our first time using it, kind of getting familiar with that, and then we did do some. But then I realized that I had a base of people that knew me from Facebook. So we just did a Facebook fundraiser. I just started saying like, hey, we're raising money. Okay. And I just created a fundraiser on Facebook. And that actually helped, with taking care of all the craft services, so that ticket. So right. Okay. I think there's different methods to it. Even like now, we could raise money. I just don't, I think I don't want to. It's not to say that we can't, because I know we can. Mm-hmm. I don't know. We just haven't been in that space to do it at this point now. So we're just kind of leaning on where we are. And I have had some financing opportunities, like there's some things I'm looking at right now, but it's just going to come. It's just not going to come with a lot of baggage. You know what I'm saying? Like, so let me say it like this. There's some money I'm looking to get, but it's just not going to come with all that stuff I had before. So right. I think there's other opportunities, but just again, fundraising and getting money is still a way to do that. We have self-financed our films, and I'm not over selling that. No, we have financed our own films, and I can just tell you that if that means I have to wait to do it, then I probably might rather do that. But I am looking at some other financing opportunities, but they just have to be the right fit for what we want as a business. So
I really love how you're talking about your process, and I'm going to get off. So thank you so much.
I'm so sorry, everybody.
Yes.
I have to jump because I have a 1:15 Zoom meeting.
Okay.
So I'm going to
I've enjoyed this. I just want to say I appreciate you guys. I'm gonna follow. If there's any way we can follow each other, please find me on Instagram at Mullen Group, or more importantly, you can find me at Fruit Bearing Studios on Instagram, and I will definitely follow you back. Let's connect, and let's continue to create with one another as a independent filmmaking community.
Community, yes. Derrick, thank
you
you so much for your time and sharing all your fabulous wisdom and all your experiences. And I'll see you next week on Clubhouse.
Yes, I'll see you guys on Tuesday. All right.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.